Okay, hi guys. Today I'm going to be swapping out the solenoid valve on an old Mark II Mira power shower. It's a Mira Jump, and the way you can tell if this is either a Mark II or a Mark I, just go on Google Images and look at the arrangement of the different dials, but this is the Mark II. I don't know if what I'm going to show you today will correspond with the Mark I, because I know the Mark I is a fair bit more complicated with a few more different components inside the shower. This one's relatively straightforward, but basically the problem I've got is even when the shower is off, there is still slight drip, water coming through. Now the most common fault with this, and the easiest way to fix it, is to swap the solenoid coil out. And the solenoid coil itself is this little thing here, this component. Now these you can buy individually. They're about, I don't know, between 15 and 20 pounds. Go to most shower spare part websites. This whole unit here is what they call a switching on-off assembly, and it basically controls where the water comes into the shower and shuts it off when you don't want water and turns it back on again when you do. So I'm going to replace this whole part here to see if that will solve the problem. It's relatively straightforward, but obviously the first thing you want to do, and the same with any sort of electrical jobs, is make sure there's no power to the unit. Now there is an LED light that sits inside here, and when it's green it means there's power going to it, and obviously there's no light on now because I've switched it off at the main fuse board. I recommend taking the fuse out if you can as well. It just means that while you're working on it, no one's going to come along and pop it back in, switch it on and fry yourself. So just make sure safety is obviously a big concern here with water and power and all that. But yeah, so make sure it's switched off first, and then I'm just going to nice and simply unscrew this bit. And then there's three Phillips head screws that hold the case on. So the tools you're going to need for this: Phillips screwdriver, adjustable wrench. Most of the screws in this shower require a Torx bit, or in this case this is a Torx screwdriver, and then a flat head just to switch the water off. So with the Phillips, there's one screw on the bottom. Now you might get a bit wet feet doing this, but not the end of the world. And this is bloody difficult with one hand, but still, I couldn't find many videos on YouTube showing how to do this when I initially had the problem, so I thought I'd just stick something online, see if it would help anyone else out in the future. So one screw on the bottom, two screws on the top. My phone is absolutely rubbish as well, so the camera's a bit crap, but you should get the general idea of what I'm doing. Exciting stuff, isn't it? So once the screws are out, make sure you remember where you're putting them all. Just makes life easier when it comes to putting it back together again. The cover should come off. I've got a little bit of silicone around the side of this just to ensure a better water seal, because it's quite an old unit. Better safe than sorry. As you can see, the components inside. Now your water should be here, an isolation valve that you can shut off with a flathead screwdriver. So I'm just going to do that. Make sure that's completely off. Now the bit that I'm replacing is essentially this whole unit here. So there's a couple of bits that you want to sort of get out of the way first. One, the little LED light is just here, and that literally sits in a small plastic cradle, so that's simple enough. Now the next things you're going to want to take out will be the Torx screws. So just to make life easier getting to it, there's a little sort of black bracket in here. Take that one out first. Take that out, put it to one side. Now this is the power supply to the solenoid coil here, just a little switch with a little plastic lever. Really simple to take out. Do like that. It'll make a lot more sense when you're actually doing it. You don't have to do this, but I'm just going to take the solenoid coil off, get it out of the way. So this is a really common fault, and a lot easier than doing what I'm about to do. Get another one of these online and see if that will work. Just literally sit it back on there, plug it back in, because often these fail, so try only one of those before you do anything else. It might solve your problem, a bit easier than taking all this apart. So the screw I took out a minute ago releases a clip in there, which I can't get out at the moment, so I'll do that in a minute. Right, now the problem is, basically this whole unit here is all one solid moulded piece of plastic, so it kind of all has to come out in order to get to this one here. So there's a few screws you want to take out, one at the bottom here. They don't like making life easy for you. And all of these screws are pretty much exactly the same length and everything, so it doesn't really matter if you don't remember exactly which one goes where. So the one just above the power switch. Now the assembly I got in the post actually came with a replacement power switch. Now there's absolutely nothing wrong with mine, so I'm just going to put that in the spares box, but it's always good to have. There's another one tucked in the front here just to the right of where the LED goes, little screw in there. Take that one out as well, and that'll start to loosen the whole assembly up a bit. I'm really sorry, this is not going to be an exciting video, but I figure people can just fast forward to the bits they need. Right, there's another one just in here, where you can see that. Put that to one side. Seeing what else needs to come out. Alright, that basically loosens the whole thing up now. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to, now these bolts, these nuts here, they're pretty tight, so I'm going to loosen the isolation valve one first, slide the copper pipe out, and then worry about the other nuts once I've got it all sort of out of the housing. So I'm going to take my adjustable wrench. Obviously be relatively delicate with any copper pipe and fixings. Shouldn't take much, a little quarter turn to loosen it up. That'll be finger loose then. You can see the olive's in there. So now what I'm going to do, this bottom section here that houses the power switch will come off, just to get it out of your way. Just drops out like that. This is the heating tank with the element in it that heats water up, so there will be a little bit of water coming out of there. Don't worry, obviously nothing to worry about. Now I haven't got much play in my plumbing here, so it's not the easiest job in the world to pull this out, but with a little bit of effort it will slide out. Right, I'm going to need 2 hands for this, so I'll be back in 2 secs. Okay, so I've literally just pulled the plumbing out away from the wall, so got a bit more access to it. Now this little black clip here is the one we took the screw off on earlier, so that can just come out of the way now. So that's what that is. Put that to one side. Right, now this section here, I don't actually need to replace this bit because it's absolutely fine, but it comes away from the housing with a couple of little plastic clips at the top and bottom. So just release that like that. Now there's 2 more screws I need to take out, here and here, so I'm just going to do that real quick. Now obviously you can see all these cables and there's still water dripping, so this is why it's so important to make sure the power is switched off and it's not coming back on. One of them, and the last one. Now to be honest, you could probably do all this without taking all of the gubbins out, but it just makes life so much easier access wise if you just loosen it away from the case, the shower casing. Right, that's the last screw. Now what you'll find is this little section here, there's a little rubber diaphragm in the back there, might fall off, that will come off, put that to one side. Now the unit I've ordered online includes that bit, so I'm just going to replace that, but the main section I'm replacing is this section right here, and it will come off with just a bit of a push. it's basically clicked in. So I'm going to do it with both hands, so the camera's going to go off screen for a bit, but it will just... So this is essentially the unit I'm replacing. There are a couple of little O-rings that sit in the frame there. Now there's some new ones came with the new kit, so I'm going to replace it with those. This plumbing here, obviously I'm going to need to reattach to the new part, so I'm going to use my adjustable wrench to loosen this nut and take it off completely. So I'll just put this down for a second. Okay, so this is the part that I'm replacing. I was getting the old piece of the pipe work off it, and had to get a bit creative with a knife, so because I had an olive on there that was a bit difficult to get off, so that's obviously going in the bin. This is the new part, only difference is obviously it's black plastic instead of white. This is the solenoid coil that I took off earlier on the shower. Now there's probably nothing wrong with this one, so I'm going to keep that in the spares, but this one came with it anyway, already attached. So this bit is going back on again, obviously plumbing connecting to that. And hopefully that should sort my problem out. I've got two new O-rings that do sit in here with this one, so I've replaced them. I've stuck them on this part here, but they basically fit into those. So the O-rings are new, this section is new, solenoid coil is new. Hopefully the problem should be sorted. So I've just got to put it back together again now. This is essentially just reversing the process of what it was a minute ago. I'm just going to get this section in reattached to this part. So basically it just clicks into this part here, and then I can sort of put it back together again from there. But I'm just going to pause it for a sec, do that because I need two hands, and I'll show you what it looks like when that bit's back together. Okay, so these two parts are now clicked together again. You'll be able to see it when you're doing it, obviously, but it's really simple to do. So now what I'm going to, just to get a bit of sort of structure to it again, I'm going to reconnect the plumbing, put the pipe back on. Yours will obviously be different to this, so depending on where the water inlet comes to on your shower, you'll have either a flexi hose or something different. So this bit is unique to my own shower, so I'm just going to reconnect that pipe up and then get back to you with the rest of it. Okay, so my plumbing is back in again. I haven't tightened it up yet, I'll do that right at the end. But now, just to sort of hold this back in place, I'm essentially just going to do pretty much a reverse of what I did to take it apart in the first place. This section here, I'm just going to sit that back in the water tank, and then I'm going to screw that part back in place just to hold it all together a bit nicely. So to get that back in again, just going to slide that in the bottom there. There is only one way it can go in, so keep fiddling with it until it slots into place. Push it in and all the screw holes will line up. 1, 2, there, that will hold that. So I'm just going to do that quickly. So go back to your little collection of screws, pop him in, and then with your Torx bit, driver, get them back in again. Just to help hold it all together so bits aren't moving when you're trying to fit it all in place again. One there. One just above the power switch. You'll also notice when you're doing this that there are a couple of little grooves cut into the plastic. Obviously that will sort of put the wires in the right places. Like there's a little notch in the plastic there that will hold that wire in place and all that sort of thing. It just makes it nice and neat and tidy, really. So yeah, so that's those two in. There's another screw hole up here that's going to be fixed down in a moment, but the black bracket that fits in here that we took off, that looks like this, that can go back in now. So the way it goes, this bit that sticks up here goes on the right side, slot it in there, push it in as far as it will go. Wait, hold on. He will go in there. Of course not when you want him to, but he will. There we go, get him in there and then get a screw in there just to hold him in place. Makes you question yourself when you're trying to get something in that should be easy and it's resisting. Alright, that's going to hold that nice and securely. Alright, so now the next section, just above the solenoid coil here, this large bit here, we're going to go back to the bit we took off earlier, which looks like this, and it has the rubber diaphragm cap there It's a little flexible thing. I actually got a new one of those with the new part, so although that part is completely fine, I'm just going to replace it anyway, because new rubber, new plastic is always good. So take the little rubber diaphragm, and that will sit nicely in the circle up here. It doesn't matter which way it goes, it's the same on both sides. That'll just sit in there. And this section here, line that up with the screw holes. It will sort of just click into place, and then get some screws in there to hold it in place. Oh, that's the sound of one of my screws nearly going down the drain. Make sure you watch out for that. That's one. That's two. And then screw number 3 goes in the top just here. I'm really sorry for the shaky video. I do not do videos normally. I just thought, because I couldn't find one to help me do this on another shower, I thought I'd make one with the off chance that it might help someone else out in the future. Now you can get a screw in here to just hold this whole section back into the frame. And that was my screw that fell in the drain, so luckily I do have a spare. That was a stupid move of me. It's not the end of the world. I'll get a magnet in there and fish it out in a minute. Right, now this section here, as I said before, it's got, make sure there's no cables in the way obviously. It's got 2 clips, top and bottom, and assuming that the dial here, which is adjusted with this, is lined up, just fiddle around with it until it clicks into place. Should be nice and simple. You just got to get this lined up with the setting it was in before, so I'll just work that out with 2 hands and then come back to you. Okay, so that's back in. Just had to turn this little dial a couple of times to get it lined up with the setting behind it. Now the LED, the power indicator, sits in its own little cradle at the top there. Just like that. There's no screws holding it in place or anything, it just literally sits in there. Now power back to the solenoid coil, nice and easy, plugs straight in, easiest bit of the whole bloody thing. Now tuck all the cables away, they've all got their own little nooks and crannies to go into, so I'll let you figure that out with the shower that you're working on. They're really easy to spot. So essentially it's all back together again now. All I've got to do is tighten up these, get the case back on. I might put a little bit of silicone sealant around the edge just to make sure it's all secure, and then we'll test the shower. So I'm just going to tighten everything up and then I'll come back to you in a sec. Cheers. Okay, so plumbing is all reconnected. Only thing to do now really is put the case back on. Now the only problems you might run into in this part here are getting the dials on the case. So temperature obviously and the setting one up here lined up with the settings on here. So the best thing that I do is if I'm looking at the case, I've got this dial here set in the fully left position, the anti-clockwise position. So then I'll get this one set also in the fully anti-clockwise position there. That should line it up. Same with this one, just keep fiddling around with it until the case sits on nice and flush, and then we'll get the screws in. Case is on, everything's all lined up nicely. Just going to get the initial, the last bit done is the 3 screws that we took out in the beginning back in the frame. Just a finger tight to start with, tighten them up in a bit. I'm sorry this is walking you through like so many different steps. I just thought if I'm going to do a video, I might as well do every little part of it. Screws in there. Get your Phillips screwdriver and tighten them all up. I'm obviously not going to show you me siliconing the shower unit. You guys can all, I'm sure, do that. If you're doing a shower fixing, you can do a bit of siliconing. Get this bloody screw lined up in the hole. I'm doing this the day after my stag weekend as well, so I'm not feeling 100%. Anyway, right, last screw in there. So, just a quick test before I do the silicone, obviously, just to see if what I've done has fixed the problem. Screw that back in there. So the factory solenoid coil will come in the default locked position, so stopping the water coming through. And then once power goes through to it, it will let water pass through. So I'm going to switch the power back on. Oh, get a mate of mine to turn it on at the fuse board. Okay. Right, so the LED light comes on. Shower is now live again. I'll keep it on all the low settings for now. Right, so the water's coming through, lovely, normal. Now my problem was when I shut it off, is it wasn't shutting off properly, so. A couple of little residue drips obviously. But that's it, it's nowhere near as bad as it was before. That water was constantly dropping, so I think that has solved it. Anyway, I hope the video helped you guys if you have this specific problem. If not, it's obviously just going to sit on YouTube gathering dust for years to come. But anyway, cheers boys, take care.